Are you prepared for an emergency? What happens if the power goes out or if you have to evacuate your house quickly? Today I'm going to go through some of my favorite tips on how we have become more prepared for emergencies over the years. My name is Amy Cross and this is the Cross Legacy, where I'm normally talking about grocery shopping and reducing your food waste and making meal prep easy. But today we are going to be talking about emergency prep and how much this reduces the stress off of me, knowing that we have everything that we could possibly need for our family. I want to talk about fire safety first, because after all of the fires that happened in California, it's just kind of the front of everybody's mind of what you would do in an emergency situation like that. Now here where we live, we actually had an evacuation a couple years ago because we had a fire that was in our town and we were in the yellow zone at the time. And I have a family member that was helping calm my nerves because he is a Forest Service firefighter. He taught me to think about fire evacuation and how long you have to prep. So if you have 5 minutes, like what are you going to grab out of your house? Which would obviously be your family, your pets, and your wallet, your purse, glasses, anything that you can grab super quickly and get safely out of the house. Now, if you had 15 minutes or 30 minutes, what else could you grab? Could you grab important papers out of the safe? Could you grab photo albums? Any of those extra things that are irreplaceable that you could grab quickly. If you had 30 minutes or 2 hours, or you think that the fire might be near you in a day, as you're thinking about family keepsakes, special items, grabbing some extra clothes, just having that mental checklist or a checklist that you make directly for your family for those necessity items is a really good thing to have. So break it up into how much time you have to evacuate your house and what you will be traveling in. Let's talk about if that fire actually started inside of your house. A lot of times those happen because of kitchen fires. So we have fire extinguishers in our house, and we also just upgraded to have fire blankets, which they suggest that you store underneath your kitchen sink, where it's really easy to grab and be able to put on the stove. Since that's not an evacuation route for me in my small kitchens, because of our kitchen setup, I wouldn't want to go and enclose myself in a small area to get the fire blanket out if there was a fire behind me in the stove. So I make sure that I store the fire blanket over in the area that I would get out of the kitchen in. That way I can easily grab it and put it on the fire if it was on the stove. Now these fire blankets, we do have them in a couple different places in our house because they can also be used if you're trying to evacuate the house and your house is actively on fire. They can help cover you and protect you from the flames also. We also have fire extinguishers on both levels in our house and in the garage, and we make sure that those are always in the green level and recharged. Something that we had put off for a really long time, and we actually didn't get it until we became foster parents and it was mandatory, was ladders, emergency ladders that would go out our second story windows. So that was just a purchase that we put off for a really long time, but having that extra peace of mind of having the ladders in the house has been really helpful. And when our grandma was living here, something that we were really concerned about was getting her out of the house if there was an emergency. So I was able to find like a fireman carry wheelchair that was on Amazon, and that way if we needed to get her out of the house, our neighbors and my husband could get her out of the house quickly and we wouldn't have to wait for 911 to get here. We are going to go into the next thing that I think about all the time, and that is keeping all of our devices charged so everybody in the house is happy during a power outage. So our first step in making sure that our devices were charged, especially for us that we have windstorms here all of the time, is we had a little hand crank charger that we could sit there and crank and crank and crank until we were able to charge our cell phones. Now we have upgraded to this 500 watt EBL power station, so we can charge any of our devices that we want to charge. It will run a TV, a lamp, those kind of things for hours. So this is a power station. You can charge this 3 ways before a storm or an emergency, and then the power will stay in this box. So it can be plugged in, you can use your car to charge it, or it can use solar panels. This device has smart changing technology, so it will completely charge 100% in 6 to 9 hours, depending on what power source you're using. When it comes to charging your needs, There are 10 ports on here: AC, DC, USB, USB-C, and there's also a wireless charging station here on top for your phone. Everyone in your family will be able to charge all of their devices because this will actually stay powered for up to 44 phone charges. This power station is lightweight and portable, and you can use it for all of your outdoor activities too, and even carry it one-handed. It's compact enough to fit in your camping supplies, and it's really versatile for your needs. This is a great first step to being prepared in an emergency. Some of those things that I'm always thinking about is having emergency food at our house. And I don't care if you're just trying to get it one more day till payday, or if you're thinking long-term food security for like 30 days. But my go-to that I tell everyone is everyone should have a box of cereal and some shelf-stable milk at home, and you can feed your family no matter what kind of emergency it is. Like, any kid is going to be happy with their favorite kind of cereal in an emergency. Now, thinking how to cook when there's an actual power outage is a big deal. And for one of our kiddos that is grown and flown and they have their own household, I made sure for Christmas this year, one of their gifts was giving them a single burner stove that you could use propane or butane on. And that way it's really versatile. If power was out for a while and they were having a hard time getting more fuel in, they could use either fuel source for this particular burner, which is really handy. And I also gave them an extra tote that had extra fuel in it. We had some bottles of water in it, some glow sticks, and some matches, because not every young adult will think about having those kinds of things in their house. And at least I know that they can make some easy meals with the pantry items that they normally have. So besides the pantry items that we normally have that I make sure that we can cook when we need to, I love also having on hand things like these ReadyWise packages. This one is a self-heating one where you don't have to have a stove, and you can just throw those in your go bags and be able to have meals on the go. They also have adventure packs where you just have to add water, either cold or warm water. If you want your food heated, then you would need a single burner stove for that. And then we also have buckets of food security that actually last in the buckets for 25 to 30 years. So that is something that every year we just seem to buy one new emergency preparedness item, and it just helps make sure that we always have things that are stocked in the house and what we need. The next thing we're going to talk about is water, and how important it is to make sure that you have it, not only that it's safe to drink, but if you can flush the toilet. So I grew up on a farm and we had well water, and whenever we knew a windstorm was coming, that was the first thing we did, was to fill up the bathtubs with water so we had water that we could flush the toilets with. Other ways that we make sure that we always have enough water is I will add water to jars and home can it when I'm canning things. But you can do this too to make sure that you have extra water just to flush the toilets. But if you're trying to make drinking water, we use our Burrow water filter. And I actually bought this for emergency preparedness and realized that I liked it so much for our everyday use that we made space on our counter and we use it every single day. We also always keep a couple cases of water so we can fill up things like our go bags or have extra in our cars at all times. And we make sure that those stay cycled through, so we get a couple each season and make sure that we're using them. We do have the blue jerry can water jugs, and we have water stored in them, and twice a year we will empty those out and then we will refill them. But they are so heavy, especially in our house that has a lot of stairs trying to deal with them. So I love being able to have a water filter system that is right here handy that we can use. But however you're storing water, make sure that you have a 10-day supply of water for your family. Another thing I want to talk about is medication. We've always had first aid kits here, and I make sure that I have a first aid kit that's always in the closet, and then I have a portable one that if there was an emergency in the backyard or at a neighbor's house, I could grab that really quickly and take it. But since I became diabetic, I also, the same week that I found out I was diabetic, I was in the middle of reading a book series called 1 Second After, and it was really eye-opening for me to make sure that I had everything I need to keep my medications that needed to be cold. So if you have any kind of injectables that you're taking they cannot be frozen. So you need to make sure that you're not putting them with too much ice in a power outage that they might freeze, but they can't be at room temperature either. So I'm using a little lunchbox that I can put ice packs in, but it doesn't freeze it. And there's also this really great thing that I want to upgrade to, and it's a rechargeable little refrigerator for the vials. So you can keep it charged for a really long time and it will stay at a constant temperature. But until then, I use the ice packs that I have, and I also have breakable ice packs that I can put with the vials. So I always make sure that I have what I need. And being diabetic, I wear a monitor also on my arm. This doesn't work if we don't have Bluetooth. So even though I don't really use the finger poke glucose kit anymore, I still make sure that I have one of those in my travel go bags. Also, I keep one in the house with extra strips. I always have an extra 3-day supply of other medicines or supplements that I'm taking and my contacts in my purse, knowing that I would always grab my purse in an emergency. So I make sure every time I renew that prescription that I'm actually using those up in my purse and I put new ones in. So I always have them in there, and I keep some extra medicine in my car also. So I know in any sort of emergency that I was leaving the house, I would have the medicines that I need. And it's so important that you either know all of the medicines and allergies that your family has, or also have those saved on your phone and written somewhere. So I just heard this weekend of one of my friends that their mother was in the hospital and they couldn't answer any of the medical questions for her, and she wasn't able to answer her own questions. So really making sure that you know the family history and medical history of the people that you would be answering questions for in an emergency. And since we're talking about medicines, let's talk about some over-the-counter medicines. This is a habit that I've been in a long time, even before the last 5 years, things that have went around. But I always, at the beginning of flu and cold season, I will make sure that our drawer of over-the-counter medicines is fully stocked of what we will need. So normally those have about a 2-year shelf life, and normally within 2 years, somebody is sick and we've used those items. But I don't have to worry about the shelves being empty. We're in the middle of a cold and flu season, and we always have what we need. And while you're doing that, also with that, I also stock some electrolyte packets, and so that way those can be added to water. Now this is another thing. When my kids went off to college, I made sure that they had these first aid, we call them mommy boxes, and had everything they needed in the dorms and in their first apartments. And this is one of our go bags. This one's more first aid related. It has also like gloves and a crowbar in it. We have other go bags that are personalized to each person that has clothes and emergency socks and medicine, but make sure that you have a go bag for everybody in your house and all of those special things that you need to make sure that you can leave the house quickly and be safe. Now this is something that Mike and I talk about all of the time, and it's really, what will we do in this kind of emergency? How will we handle that? Are we prepared? Like these kind of conversations with your family is really important, especially if you have family that are spread out. My family would know, even if there was no cell phone service or phone service, where we would try to get to if there was a major emergency here in the Seattle area and we had to leave like the West Coast. In the comments, make sure you comment one small step that you're taking to make your family more prepared. And if you're looking for links for any of these items, we will have the links in the description to find them on Amazon.